Yo, what's up, guys? It's your presenter Franklin here, and I want to do something a little different. I kind of have been trying to think of other content that I wanted to put on my channel besides Wi-Fi battles and all this other stuff. Just like the Toxapex video I did last week or 2 weeks ago. It's been a while since I remember doing videos like that. But thank you guys so much for the support. We are close to hitting 1.2k subs, so hit that like and sub button. And we're going to talk about something that has been on my mind for quite a while, and it was actually brought up by one of my good Facebook friends on one of the Pokemon Central group, Larry. So shout outs to him. He knows who he is. He brought up a very good point as to why Smogon necessarily, doesn't really appeal to a lot of the community fan base, and why it gets an unnecessary amount of hate and alienates quite a big audience that Pokemon usually curtails throughout the years. And so I wanted to bring up Series 6 Season 10. Now, what this is the new singles and doubles ranked rules. So it starts in September, which is I think it's about a week away. It actually is a week away. And obviously, this only applies to the Switch officially. It's available National Dex. It has to have the Galar Battle Ready mark. You go to the tower and make your Pokemon battle ready and whatnot, or give it the mark. Banned Pokemon. Now look at this list here: Venusaur, Gyarados, Porygon 2, Tyranitar, Torkoal, Hippowdon, Magnezone, Togekiss, Excadrill, Whimsicott, Incineroar, Mimikyu, Rillaboom, Cinderace, Indeedee, and Dragapult. So those are, I think, 15 Pokemon that have been banned in the new set of rules for the upcoming series. And obviously, if you played ranked singles, you bring a team of 6, and you're only allowed to bring 3 Pokemon with you, and they're all set to level 50. Obviously, the timer rules are there. We all know what the timer is. And they allow Gigantamax Pokemon. These usually have been pretty much consistent outside of the addition of Urshifu, which was brought on from from the DLC, I should say. And then doubles rule set, you got the same banned Pokemon here. Well, I find that very interesting too, and we'll get to that very soon. And then it says here, the one tiny sentence officially brought on by the Pokemon Company or Game Freak or whoever is in charge of doing all this BS, and says the 6th ranked battle series focused on the Pokemon of the Galar Pokedex and includes a ban list. This ban list is out of the top 10 most used Pokemon during Series 5 Season 8 in July 2020, which was the previous series in Pokemon. And pretty much this was the first rule set in which the DLC Pokemon were introduced. And essentially it started about 2 weeks after the DLC dropped, the first wave, the Isle of Armor. So with this information right here, I think it's very interesting that they ended up banning the same Pokemon in singles and in doubles. Now let's go over the couple Pokemon here. Venusaur, Torkoal, there's always been Sun. Sun has been very prominent recently in singles as well. I'm not just talking about Smogon or OU. They have as well, but we're talking strictly the ranked series. Gyarados is a pretty good Dynamax user. It has Dragon Dance. It has Power Whip to deal with its supposed counters and checks. Porygon 2 is Trick Room. T-Tar, a very good Dynamax user. Weakness Policy T-Tar is still pretty consistent, and it's very capable of supporting Excadrill, which also ended up in the ban list too. Hippowdon is another Sand user. This is mostly catered towards singles because Hippowdon necessarily isn't that great in doubles, but because usually T-Tar would be the preferred Sand user partner for Excadrill. And then we have Magnezone. Again, this is more catered towards singles. Togekiss, it's really good in singles because of its Dynamax capabilities, with Air Slash becoming Max Airstream. It has access to Nasty Plot. It has access to powerful fire type move that gets transformed into Dynamax and blows its checks and counters. Excadrill, we all know Excadrill. Whimsicott, it's mostly like a doubles support. Incineroar, arguably in Generation 7, it was the best VGC Pokemon. Very good ability Intimidate. It has very good move set with Parting Shot, Fake Out, Low Kick to counter specific Pokemon that might check your team. You got Mimikyu. Arguably, it's very annoying in singles. In doubles, not so much, but it does have access to Trick Room as well. Rillaboom and Cinderace. Uh, Obviously, this is a perfect example of what happens when you give Pokemon very good abilities. Rillaboom with Grassy Terrain. Cinderace with Libero, which is obviously, it changes its type depending on what move it uses. They're both very good Dynamax users as well, and they got their own Gigantamax. Indeedee, it ended up getting a new move in Expanding Force. Obviously, it's very powerful if it's definitely equipped with a choice specs. And Dragapult, because Dragapult technically is the fastest Pokemon allowed. Because if we go down here, Zeraora is banned because it is a mythical Pokemon, and mythicals traditionally have been banned by official competitive play. Now, I find it quite funny that when all it takes is one line here, this ban list is top 10 most used Pokemon, but first of all, I'm only counting what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 Pokemon. So I guess they mixed the ban list based on most used Pokemon in singles and doubles. And if there's any duplicates, like for example Excadrill, then they count it as 1, I guess. That's not even really good explanation for me anyways. And yet, I find it quite ironic that there wasn't really much of an uproar here, and that they decided to say, you know what, we're going to ban the most used Pokemon for the next series and let bygones be bygones. And first and foremost, from these bans, you can definitely tell they got rid of the Sand and Sun users here, the more prominent ones. And it seems to me like Rain is going to be the next dominant archetype in the next rule set. Pelipper, Kingdra, Barraskewda. Now those Pokemon can thrive without really fighting a weather war. Now, why do I keep bringing this up? Well, it seems to me that when these Pokemon got banned, the initial reaction of the community was there wasn't much of an uproar. People were like, you know what? There has to be a change because we keep seeing the same Pokemon, and the higher up you go in the master rank, and you know, we gotta always bring these specific counters against these specific archetypes, or you know, whatever the metagame has. And people were very welcoming. People were saying, you know what, I think what they did was a good idea. And bannings in official competitive play are very scarce outside of mythicals, because mythicals don't really align with the release, well, like worldwide releases. For example, Japan gets their mythicals earlier than us, and therefore it brings an unbalance to those who, you know, may not get those Pokemon through logistical means, which I guess that makes sense. And obviously, Pokemon that don't exist will automatically get banned because they're not in the game yet. Yet, when a certain community, aka Smogon, goes ahead and do their little respective suspect testing and quick bans, and I'm going to pull up Magearna, for example, here, there's always an uproar from people that don't play Smogon. People that are not informative as to what's going on. Now, obviously, I would like to quote that people are fearful of everything that they don't know. If you don't have the intelligence or the knowledge behind a specific topic, your reasoning is already flawed. Now, what do I mean by this? So, let's take a look at Magearna's suspect testing. Now, I don't have to read all this for you guys, but pretty much Magearna, this generation, ended up getting very, very powerful moves in Draining Kiss, Iron Defense, Trick, Stored Power, Electro Ball. It ended up getting one of the best movesets out of this generation. Now, Generation 7 is a bit different because Z moves existed, and I still believe that Magearna should have been banned last generation, or was due for a suspect test. for sure. So the way Smogon usually decides whether things get banned or not is through the power of suspect testing. Now, what is suspect testing? Essentially, you have to log on to Pokemon Showdown, and you have to ladder in their specific tier. This one OU or overused for those who are not familiar with Smogon, and you have to meet specific requirements. Now, these requirements have changed over the years, but the most current one we have now is that you need to reach an X amount of GXC, 82%, and GXC is essentially the odds of you winning against a random player on the ladder. So your probability has to be a minimum 82% better against who you most likely will win against, with a minimum of 40 games played. Now, the reason why there are a number of games that you need to be played is because you need to be familiar with the metagame. You have to have at least a basic understanding of what's going on. You can't just play 5 games with a random team you just made and say, this is broken. This Pokemon so-and-so is not great for a metagame, or you know what, this is the secret tech. That's not how it works. You need to have an extensive amount of knowledge and games to back up your claims. So I think 40 games is okay. Now, I will say probably the GXC is a little too high. I think 80% is okay, but that's just me. I'm just a dumbass. I don't know any better. Obviously, you need to make a fresh new account, prevent cheating and all that. So you usually for suspect tests, you are given 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks is fine, because if you log in on Showdown for about an hour every day, that's at least depending on what your game's playing, 4 to 5, and you multiply that by number of days, 14. That gives you about 70 to 80 games on a minimum for an hour. I think that's pretty good. It tells you the rules, of course, and all that. And then the community chimes in. It could be the OU leaders. It could be knowledgeable veterans telling you why so-and-so is broken, or why it's healthy, actually, or why it deserves to be banned. Or, people collect their thoughts on the threads here, and they ask people, like, what's your opinion on this? Or why do you think Magearna deserves a suspect test? Why do you think so-and-so deserves to get a quick ban? Now, with this community here talking about, and even bring up damage calcs, which I think are very helpful to see the behind the scenes of why so-and-so are definitely broken, or they're unhealthy and they don't belong in the metagame. So, and they tell you about different sets as well. A Pokemon is only as good as its sets. And obviously there are certain Pokemon that, with the right sets, they're very dangerous and may deem a metagame unviable for a lot of other Pokemon. And even like right here, people believe that certain Pokemon should not be banned, and that's okay. But see, this is where I talk about Smogon and why it gets an unnecessary amount of hate. And how there wasn't an uproar. There was an initial uproar where these Pokemon banned by usage, by the way, not by, there's no other explanation. The Pokemon Trading Company or whoever's in charge of all this, Game Freak, they never gave an explanation outside of usage. And yet they banned these Pokemon. And people were very calm about it. But yet when I go to Smogon and I talk about Smogon and why Smogon bans certain stuff, people are in an uproar. Now, the biggest uproar that Smogon received was when Dynamaxx ended up getting banned. People were off the fritz when it came to this banning. And it's like, well, first of all, do you even play Smogon? If you don't play Smogon, this does not affect you. If you don't care about Smogon, it definitely doesn't affect you in any way, shape, or form. It don't pay the bills for you. OU is its own tier. I will refer to OU a lot because that's where the majority of what happens within metagames takes place. And obviously Dynamaxx, I think this was like 1 month after the release of Sword and Shield, is it was a very quick turnaround. 1 month to just to play around, and pretty much here they talked about the suspect testing, and they conducted voting. And this is mostly for people who are not familiar with how Smogon works. They give you all this information as to what the suspect testing does, what are they trying to accomplish, why do they believe that certain Pokemon deserve to not benefit from certain mechanics like Z moves, and in this generation it was Dynamaxx. Now let's take a look over here Now, right off the bat, the reason why, in my opinion, I'm not going to read any of this, but the reason why Dynamaxing was banned was because it provided an unhealthy, over centralizing mechanic to a game with a limited Pokedex. Limited. Very key word right there, because technically, even after the first DLC wave, we're still on a limited Pokedex. Not everyone has came back yet. Now, off the top of my head, the biggest Dynamaxx abusers in this generation prior to getting banned on Smogon was Gyarados, Excadrill, Hawlucha, Togekiss, because the max moves had secondary effects. It can increase speed, it can increase defense, offense, depending on the type of the move that was used. And, I just mentioned Gyarados, Hawlucha, Togekiss, Excadrill. And guess what? And it's actually mentioned around here as well. Togekiss, Gyarados, Hawlucha. Darmanitan was obviously broken. I mean, Darmanitan was already broke. Galarian one, of course. And guess what? And I actually mentioned Excadrill as well. But guess what? That's crazy that Gyarados is right here, and it got banned by usage. Togekiss is Excadrill right here, and they got banned by usage. Dragapult was also mentioned in the threads as well, but that's because it might be a new toy syndrome, of course, because a new generation means people want to use new Pokemon. So there you have it. I just don't understand how banning Dynamaxing deserves so much hate when, again, we go back to how they're banning the top 10 Pokemon, whether it's by support or by Dynamaxx users, and there you go. The 3 Pokemon I just mentioned are banned. Now, let's say theoretically that Dynamaxx was still around. I still believe that Pokemon such as Togekiss, Dragapult, Excadrill, they would still be absolutely broken in this generation, even if we ended up getting new Pokemon. Theoretically, of course, didn't happen because obviously Dynamaxx has been banned since nearly the formation of the Generation 8 metagame. And yet here we are. I will say almost 8 months later, 9 months later, and what does Game Freak do, or what does the Pokemon company do? They ban the Pokemon by usage. The top 10 in each respective singles and doubles ranked series. And again, I just don't really understand why Smogon ends up getting so much hate when the Pokemon company, the game itself, bans the support Pokemon like Porygon 2, because obviously you're not going to Dynamax a Porygon 2 or Torkoal. Come on. These guys right here, these guys are the real Dynamaxx users. And when Smogon banned it, everyone's up in flames. Everyone who was not acknowledged. Now, obviously, there are some people who were knowledgeable in Smogon. They probably disagreed because they wanted to try out this new mechanic. And, obviously being banned isn't really good for a new generation, because people complain that, well, you know what, Generation 6 Megas weren't banned and Generation 7 Z moves weren't banned. Obviously, certain ones were banned in lower tiers because they're absolutely broken and deserve to be looked under. And just like, new Pokemon that were introduced, they got straight up quick banned because they were over centralized. Marshadow, Generation 7, I'm looking at you. But anyways, when the Smogon had its own formal process of how to approach certain aspects of the game, whether it's suspect testing, quick banning, Cinderace got quick banned recently, although I technically did not agree with it, but it was for its own good, for a metagame that's still was shaping from the DLC. Like I said, quick bans, suspect tests, community voting, a formal process, somehow ends up getting way more hate, way more discouragement from the community than from a simple sentence from Pokemon saying, here, we just banned these because they were used too much. And I bet you $100 that if Dynamaxing was not banned in Smogon OU, these exact Pokemon would be top tier in singles 6v6. especially Venusaur, because Venusaur ended up getting traction once DLC dropped, and Sun has been prominently the better weather archetype in Generation 8. Obviously, Rain has competition, but obviously, Rain was not touched by this ban at all. Gyarados, I still think it'd still be the best Dynamax user along with Hawlucha, especially since Hawlucha ended up getting the grassy terrain partner, Rillaboom. Oh, wait, Rillaboom is banned, but yet it's not banned in Gen 8 OU. Now, if we were to ban these Pokemon in Generation 8 overused metagame, wow, I did not highlight that. If these were all banned, I'm pretty sure whatever formation of the metagame occurs here, it's going to happen pretty much in Smogon. So I just wanted to, just rant a little bit of how ironic and how hypocritical community, I guess, quote unquote, haters are when a certain Pokemon company does this, and then while Smogon does it more formally, reaches out to the community, talks about these multitude paragraphs in regards to why they do suspect testing and why it makes a competitive scene unhealthy and which Pokemon abuse it, which Pokemon get, cucked by it essentially, and what you need to do to get a suspect test. How do you vote for the Rex? It gets hate. And I just never understood why that always happened. Is it misinformation? Is it because certain people are getting influenced by certain people? Is it because people fear of not understanding a specific topic? I think if the Pokemon community were to do more research in regards to why certain things happen, we'd all be living a happy, peaceful coexistence within the community. And yet, here we are, people talking about Smogon like, Smogon's trash. They don't really care about Pokemon. Their bans don't make any sense. Well, listen, man. Your favorite Pokemon company, so-and-so, just ended up doing a ban list. And yet, I don't hear any uproar. But I bet you next time when Smogon decides to do a suspect test and start banning stuff, especially with the new legendary Pokemon coming around, I bet you that you're going to turn around and say, you know what, man, there's banning. Smogon doesn't know what they're doing. They're trying to make the game less fun whatsoever. All right, whatever. A little rant. There you guys have it. That's my opinion so far as, what I think about the Pokemon community as a whole and how, in the end, Smogon is always going to get the hate it gets. While I support Smogon, I can see it from both sides, but one side is very irrational, and the other side, through a more theoretical and very well thought out process, deserves more respect. This is your boy Franklin, and thank you for tuning into my TED Talk. Peace.